On this episode of China Unscripted, our guest didn't show up, so we do our best to talk about the latest China news while staying on the rails. Brace yourself for what's to come. Welcome to China Unscripted. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Zhang.
And I'm Matt Ganesta.
So you hear about the TikTok's latest and greatest defense against the ban?
Tell us about their defense against the ban, which is actually not a ban.
I would love to. So the whole idea is, they're trying to pull they're trying to counter, like, by saying, like, oh, this is a free speech thing, blah blah blah, and one of their arguments is like, so the bill would force ByteDance to divest from TikTok, sell to an American company. But TikTok's defense is, well, they can't because the Chinese Communist Party won't let them.
So then they shouldn't have to because...
And so they made the whole point that the thing was about, that the Chinese Communist Party controls it.
Right. And the U.S. lawmakers are saying it's controlled by the Communist Party. And TikTok's like, no, we're a totally independent company. I'm from Singapore. But actually...
we also can't divest because the Chinese Communist Party won't let us.
Yeah.
So therefore, your bill is crazy. We can't do what your bill wants us to do.
Therefore, it would ban it, and that would be a free speech
issue. Yeah, because the Chinese Communist Party has complete control over TikTok, we would have to be banned. So that's a free speech thing, right? Come on.
The only way to preserve free speech is to preserve an app that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
That's right, because if that's gone, then there is no free speech, right?
Has the CCP redefined free speech? Like they have to redefine all those other words?
Well, it is like how Mao, like in the Chinese Constitution, it says it's, a democratic dictatorship of the people. And Mao specifically said, not everyone is the people.
Right, yeah, there's this whole speech he made about what the democratic dictatorship is. And he's like, yeah, the dictatorship part is that the people have to punish the people who are not the people, like the left, the rightists, the counter-revolutionaries, the running,
Yeah. So the people have free speech, but if you're not part of the people, then you don't get those. You don't get free speech. Come on.
Or you could redefine it as free speech is only speech that is, true information, or as in not disinformation or misinformation.
Politically correct.
Right, but then when it's a government, in this case, the one run by the CCP, redefines like truth as what is towing the party line, then they can, it's a few steps here, right? But that's how they could say, they have free speech. And actually, the Chinese Constitution, I believe it's Article 35, does guarantee free speech. But we know what that really means in practice.
But what is truth? Is truth unchanging law? We both have truths. Are mine the same as yours?
No, truth is my lived experience.
I'm quoting Jesus Christ Superstar. I don't know what you're doing. Greatest musical ever?
I thought Les Mis was the greatest musical ever.
Second.
Wait, which is second? Les Mis is second?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know you liked Jesus Christ Superstar that much.
Good.
I have to be honest, I have not seen either one.
Wow.
I saw Les Mis in London.
Aren't you fancy going to London?
Did you have tea and crumpets?
I've never had
Go to
crumpets,
Hogwarts School of Wizardry.
That's actually in Scotland.
James Bond. Queen of England.
James Bond is supposed to operate overseas.
Okay.
I don't know much about England or the people or the culture.
Apparently, Chris, you need to go to London.
Have you not been to London, Chris?
I have not.
Huh. Wow. And you've only been to Paris that one time when we accidentally went there on the layover.
Yes.
That wasn't an accident. That was
Norwegian Airlines.
Which is now defunct.
As it should
anymore.
be, because it rerouted us to Paris after a day of waiting.
I'm glad we didn't have money to go with a real airline.
Yeah. So anyway, TikTok, free speech. What were we talking about?
Well, I was gonna.
Shelley just dropped it like, I went to England.
Oh no! I was gonna tell a story about Jesus Christ Superstar, which is
please,
like when the only time I've seen part of it was in 7th grade music class. There was a substitute teacher, so they pop in a video. Mm-hmm. And
that would cause so many problems if any substitute teacher tried to play Jesus Christ Superstar in an American public school now.
Maybe you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but like, I didn't know what the premise of it is, and it's very 70s. Like the movie is like the set design, everything is super 70s. So at first, I thought it was about some like religious cult that thought they had the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, because I thought it was taking place in the 70s. Like I was a very confused 12-year-old.
I could see that. I know every line in that musical. Wanna see? My mind is clear now. At last, all too well. This is gonna be a 5-hour live stream. I can see where we all soon will be. I wonder if we'll get copyright strike for this.
Everything's all right now. Everything's fine.
Woman, your fine ointment, brand new and expensive, should have been saved for the poor.
Yes, so this is the part that really confused me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just sitting over here like, wait, what?
And this is the kind of free speech we're going to lose if TikTok gets banned. That's what the American government wants, to get rid of this. What we have here.
This show that is currently on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes
Because
and our
if
own
they
website.
go after TikTok, they'll go after X next.
I'm still hung up on Jesus Christ Superstar, and now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that you would love a 70s rock opera of the Bible makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, how so?
Like, just like your interests, like your interest in 70s music, your interest in, Old Testament podcasts. Like it's just like, it's like, oh, this is all, yes, okay, I could see why this is your favorite musical.
There is a strong possibility Jesus Christ Superstar might be heterodox teachings.
I mean, it's a 70s rock opera.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but.
And then Les Mis, Communist Revolution.
Was that particular revolution communist?
I mean, it was still like in the whole vein of like the French Revolution kind of thing.
But like, 50 years later or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the main for the
Yes,
French Revolution.
I actually thought it was about the main French
me too, for a long
Revolution
time.
as a child, and then at some point I realized they're wearing all the wrong costumes, and then I was like, oh, okay, yes, this is definitely not the 1790s.
We will join those little schoolboys. They will wet themselves with blood.
That's just like, what, guys, stop it.
This is the big Act 1 finale number for China Unscripted. Well, this is
One day
253 episodes. We're halfway through
Halfway through what?
our lives.
That actually may be true.
That's why we're having our musical number right now. Also, Jumping the Shark.
Is this a mind dust hangover? Is that what happened?
No,
Let's
not bring that up.
Just having an existential crisis. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
I think this must be a record for how fast we got off the rails.
just be
actually.
glad I didn't actually go through the entirety of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Wait, do you know all the songs, or all the songs like
There
Wait.
are no spoken
Oh, so it's
words.
completely-
I know the entirety of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Les Mis is also like that. You have a very specific taste in musicals.
I have good taste. The best taste.
Shelley, what's your favorite musical?
I've just suddenly forgotten all the musicals I was
It's like,
ever a part of.
Do you read
or-
a book? Do you read books? Name a book.
Yes, I can see how those people get on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
not knowing-
That was a Jimmy Kimmel thing where it was like, name a book. And
yeah.
people couldn't.
Yes, because they got frozen and were like, books. What are books?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I
Necronomicon.
I did for a long time really love Les Mis. But I think
What about Hamilton?
I do really, maybe 1776 is my favorite musical actually.
Ooh, Mr. Feeney.
Yes, but like I really like 1776.
I also like 1776. I think Hamilton is also very good though.
Yes.
As a movie that is specifically about the founding fathers of the United States.
Yes. Unlike 1776?
No, I mean there's only those two musicals I can think of that are on that very specific subject.
Yes. Yes. Okay, true. I could tell you what my favorite plays are, but like musicals, it's just like, whew. Yeah. but probably 1776.
It's like plays. Like, why not have a couple of songs in there, some dance numbers? Come on, it's a show. It's entertainment, people.
Yeah, and again, this is why the United States should not ban TikTok.
Because people might like to recreate the entirety of Jesus Christ Superstar in 30-second.
I'm going to drop
TikTok.
this one. I'm going to drop this one. Are you ready for this? So you got me thinking, like, with that whole thing about how, plays are stupid because they don't have some songs in there. That got me thinking, I mean, that's the problem with Shakespeare. And then I remembered in college, my theater professor wrote a disco version of Hamlet.
I would watch that.
Was what happened with the to be or not to be speech?
To be or not to be, that is the question. That is the question.
Okay.
That is the question. And then there were lightsabers for the sword fight for some reason. I was Laertes. I was supposed to have a Cockney accent. I can't do a Cockney accent.
As Laertes.
I had more hair back then, so I had like these giant like dyed purple spikes hair.
Wait,
I was like a punk rocker.
You had really long hair?
Long enough to make like big old spikes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was this
I have a
also when
picture
you had your
somewhere.
mustache or no?
This was pre-mustache.
Okay. Wow. Just we're learning a lot about.
I know this is background lore.
Chris.
For the audience's benefit, we had a guest planned who did not show up.
Yes.
So this is why we are maybe a little more unfocused.
It's also because of what I'm drinking.
Don't do it, Matt. Ugh.
Unless anyone has seen the last very specific thing.
Oh no, this is something else. This is a low carb virgin Irish coffee,
Okay.
which is to say it's black
It's
coffee.
And in high school, I was in a musical version of Noah's Ark.
Okay.
The unicorns did not make it onto the boat, but they got a song. And then were put into the world of imagination.
Wait. Okay, the song wasn't "There were green alligators and humpback geese."
No,
Not that
no.
one?
This
Not
was
the
written
Shel
by-
Silverstein poem.
No,
okay.
this was written by my high school theater director.
Okay. Could you guys not afford like the license for an actual like musical? Because I went to a school district that didn't have a lot of money, but we still like put on actual. I was in Guys and Dolls one year, and then we did also Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and we did like actual musicals that people had heard of.
Noah was not an actual musical.
It was Noah. That was what it was
That was
called.
called Noah. I think maybe with an exclamation
Exclamation point. The way you said it, it sounded like there was an
Yeah.
exclamation point at the end of Noah.
Yeah, it was great. I was the bully. I represented all evil, apparently, in humanity.
You were the bully.
I
Like there
was
was
the bully.
one bully that was like, "No, the rains aren't coming."
Yeah, like I bullied Noah's son. Not a son that actually existed in the Bible, because I think I killed him.
What? I think that goes beyond bullying, probably. If you
Well, it was an escalation over time.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Did your high school theater teacher have dreams of like writing for Broadway or something?
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah, Chris. If China Uncensored hadn't taken off, that could have been your
Yeah.
career.
I've had a strange life in many ways.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
actually.
you do have like a master's degree from NYU in classical music composition.
Yeah, and then I sailed the South China Sea, slept in the tents of the Hong Kong umbrella movement.
This is suddenly sounding like the.
My life sounds like it was generated by ChatGPT. I am now I'm having an existential crisis.
I to be fair, the sailing the South China Sea was entirely Matt's fault and suggestion.
Yeah. We could have put our foot down.
Yeah, I suppose so. At the time, it seemed like a good idea,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. We were young.
We were young. I was thinking about this the other day. Like one of the great things about us being like a team, like a three, like we can balance each other out and like with votes. So like
Okay.
we can if we have different agreement, we can all vote and we'll end up doing whatever you say.
Hey, the last vote, I agreed with you.
Well, which was that? Was it lunch?
No, it wasn't lunch. It was about
It was about running an episode.
Yeah, so it was about whether to run an episode or not.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, this is what we call a democracy, or perhaps a.
I thought we called this a triumvirate.
I was going to say a democratic dictatorship of the people.
And only Shelley is the people?
Sometimes that does feel like the case.
Yeah.
But it's mainly because I'm intimidated by Shelley.
Yes, I'm super scary.
Hey, if anyone is still watching, leave a comment. Still watching.
Still watching. So what happened in China this week? Oh yeah, so Russia might help China invade Taiwan.
Yeah, so that's that was an interesting thing to see. And like I'm not sure how solid this is. It's kind of the idea that like if it comes to blows with the US and either Russia or China, the other one will get involved. And so if China invades Taiwan and the US does something about that, Russia will then get involved.
Right. I mean, China is already involved in supporting Russia in the war.
That's right.
So like that part is an easy, obvious step, right? Although I think that Russia already is cut off from the West pretty much. So they have a little bit less to lose, whereas China is trying to have its, feet in two boats at this point by, selling a bunch of stuff to Russia, making money, propping up that economy and its own economy, and also trying to maintain as best it can its ties with the West because it needs to export a bunch of, cheap crap, including electric vehicles, but also all the like little small stuff they do, and in order to forestall the collapsing of their economy. So I feel like China would be a little bit more reluctant to do something that's going to get the West to automatically cut them off.
Well, I think the question is, do they believe that the West would automatically cut them off?
Which is a good question because basically China has already crossed the line. They're supporting Russia's military invasion of Ukraine. Absolutely.
It's because they've slowly moved the line like so gradually that we haven't really done a good job of responding to it.
This is something that when we had David Stilwell on maybe a few years ago now, he was talking about the problem. He was the former Secretary of State for Asia Pacific, and he was talking about the problem with red lines is that like if you put the red line down, then you have to actually enforce it. So the Biden administration had said something about the red line being like China actually supplying Russia with military equipment essentially. And so now it's become apparent that they are. And has the Biden administration had any response to this like red line that they said there was? So that's the problem. If you were going to do it, you have to actually. It can't just be a threat, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the U.S. is still welcoming China's help in talking to Russia about the war, welcoming China's help with the Middle East and talking to Hamas and Fatah that they just hosted last week or 2 weeks ago now. But yeah, like China says it's supposedly neutral in the Ukraine war, but yes, it's still like backing Russia with equipment, and then also saying like, well, in any peace agreement, Ukraine needs to make some concessions, obviously, right?
I mean, that's kind of been their stance from the beginning. Yeah. Which is very much Russia's.
Well, and they want that with Taiwan too. Like, okay, Russia invades Ukraine. Ukraine's got to make some concessions.
I don't understand the logic behind that. Why would the country that's being invaded have to make concessions?
Because if you want peace, both sides have to give something up.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So the invader gets to say you have to make concessions if you want peace. So then they make
no. The invader's friend.
China.
Okay. And then so Ukraine gives up a bunch of stuff, and there's peace. And then Russia invades more of Ukraine later and demands further concessions as in exchange for peace.
You missed a step in there. There's the step where it's like, okay, peace is back. Let's get completely dependent on Russian natural gas and oil. Germany will be leading that charge.
Yeah.
And then they'll invade again, and then everyone will be screwed, and we'll go through the cycle again.
Well, not until the next Olympics. So we have like 2 years between,
When's the next Olympics in an authoritarian country?
It's in Paris this
So this next
summer.
So this summer,
I was going to say, well, it depends how you feel about France.
one day more.
That is a banger of a Act 1 ender, I have to say, yeah.
The South Park parody of it is fantastic as well.
I have seen that, but I don't remember it anymore.
Their original movie, like the music in that was legitimately great, and they have their big Act 1 closing that is very much based off of One Day More.
And then the creators of South Park went on to write an entire actual musical.
Like one of the most successful musicals.
Yes. I have not seen Book of Mormon.
Neither have I.
There was one summer where I was like, oh, I'm going to see a bunch of Broadway plays and musicals. And
Did you?
I did, but I can't remember all of the ones that I watched anymore. There was one that Steve Martin had that involved banjo playing that I went to see.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
It's called Bright Star or something like that. It was pretty good. I saw one called like The Band's Visit, which was about an Egyptian band visiting Israel and going to the wrong town.
Huh.
And the guy who played Monk in the TV show Monk was the lead singer guy.
Oh, it's
He was,
interesting how, like,
the
Hollywood
romantic
actors-
lead of
Really?
this. Yes, it was very odd. Yeah.
I mean,
Because monk rhymes with hunk.
that is factually true.
Yes, that is true.
So I'm here to provide facts.
Anyway,
I mean, I can't abide Broadway because I don't appreciate derogatory terms like that about women.
okay.
But old-fashioned derogatory terms.
Yeah, when I was in Guys and Dolls, there were a lot of old-fashioned derogatory terms about women in that particular.
I was in Flower Drum Song once. That's that one.
Hold on.
There were not very. Oh yeah, there were not a lot of Asian kids at my school. You want to know? You want to know how they solved that, Shelley?
Did they paint your eyes? Like, did
Oh,
they?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I knew that was coming.
Oh, yeah.
I now vaguely have this memory that you told me this once, but I had completely forgotten about it.
Wow. Things that were okay in the 90s.
Oh,
I mean, was it okay?
Things that were not deemed so problematic that everyone got canceled for
But
it.
I bet one reason you did Flower Drum Song is probably because it's not exactly like a super popular musical. So it was probably a cheaper one to
Probably
do.
cheaper.
Yeah. But yeah, cool. That also is a weird one to do. It is about like Chinese nightclub singers in the 40s or 50s. Like it's not, it's kind of a weird one to have high school students do. But then also we did Guys and Dolls in high school, and they're like one of the female leads is essentially a stripper. So there are like musical numbers that are like strip acts.
I'd be very uncomfortable as a parent in that audience.
Yeah, so there are these teenage girls taking off their clothes. I mean, they wore like leotards underneath, but still, it was stripping.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of things you don't think about.
Yep. In retrospect, it's like, huh, right.
Guys and Dolls. Well,
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was probably a better idea.
did he actually have an amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in the Bible?
I mean, it was a colorful coat. It was a coat of many colors.
There was a coat of many colors.
Yes. Yeah. That was also an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical.
Andrew Lloyd Webber is the best
based
man.
on the Bible.
Yep. He has done everything he has done. It has been perfect and without flaws.
Is there one that you're thinking about in particular as you laugh about this?
Everything. Everything. A Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. Okay.
A Phantom of the Opera is here inside my mind.
I've never seen Phantom of the Opera either.
We went to class, acting class, with the guy who was Phantom.
Did we?
Or was that just me? Paul? Big, handsome, muscular, half-deformed face, Paul?
I don't remember Paul. Maybe it was just you.
Maybe it was just me inside my mind.
Okay, so the reason that people are talking about Russia maybe helping China invade Taiwan is some officials from the Defense Intelligence Agency were testifying in front of a Senate panel last week, or maybe almost 2 weeks ago by the time this comes out. And they were talking about how China and Russia are increasingly helping each other in all different ways. And then they were asked whether, according to this news article, when asked about whether this dynamic meant the U.S. had to prepare to fight both adversaries at the same time should conflict begin with one, Haynes said it was possible, but the likelihood depended on the scenario. Cruz, however, said it was a greater possibility than it was a few years ago. Bottom line is that basically if we were to have a conflict with one, the chances are we would have a second front.
Yeah.
The chances.
I mean, it's a greater possibility than it was a few years ago is the way that it was couched.
So there is a chance.
Maybe 2 chances or 3.
Right. But I mean, like, there's always a chance.
Okay, well, I think it's probably more than the chance of me winning the lottery or,
Yeah, because, well, actually, I think Russia is largely, not just the war in Ukraine, but I think it's being largely propped up by the Chinese Communist Party now. So I'm sure if China said jump, Putin would come riding in on shirtless on his horse.
And then
Say
jump the
how
horse.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's also some things going on in Russia now about like a crackdown on Falun Gong practitioners in Russia. Some suggest because China requested it.
I feel like that's a really bad idea on Putin's part because, like, look what happened when the CCP cracked down on Falun Gong in 1999. Like, they kind of made it go from like a bunch of people doing Qigong in the park to now this like global like activist dissident movement that is highly critical of the CCP, and their work has caused no end to annoyance to the CCP, right? So now imagine Russia also doing it. Like, I just feel like that's a really short-sighted thinking.
That's an interesting analysis.
Yes, that's my analysis. And I could be wrong, but I'm usually not.
But yeah, I think it is always worth remembering how much of Russia's resources the war has drained, which does put it in
Greater dependence on China?
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if without the CCPs propping up Russia would basically collapse to the point where it would just have to completely withdraw from Ukraine.
Maybe Putin would have to sit down. Maybe if the U.S. would stop propping up China, then everything would get better.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in the U.S., but
Europe. Yeah, we can talk about Europe's EV things and Germany being
right
stupid
because Xi Jinping is
in Europe
trying to make buddies with the leaders of European authoritarian countries like France.
Yeah, well, he did meet with Macron. Yeah.
Xi Jinping's European Vacation. I'm imagining a 1-for-1 Chevy Chase National Lampoon remake. Xi Jinping.
That actually, I would watch that.
Me too.
But go ahead, Shelley. About what are they doing in Europe now?
Have we finished what we were talking about previously?
I think we've now finished talking about all the musicals that we've watched or been part of.
If you're still watching, leave a comment.
Which is your favorite musical?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Europe.
Europe.
So Xi Jinping is in Europe. What's he doing there, Shelley?
Meeting with friendly countries. I mean, he was in France, and then he went to Hungary, Serbia. These are countries that are in the EU, but also very much involved in like the CCP's efforts to court
particularly
Europe.
Hungary.
I mean, Serbia also.
Yeah.
Like they've been pretty supportive. So like he's obviously going and kind of trumpeting the benefits of like working with China, look at all of the prosperity that we've brought to these countries with our win-win cooperation, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's a little unclear whether he's going to be able to like really like win Europe back over as a whole.
There is a lot of tension right now, particularly over Chinese dumping of electric vehicles, which is kind of ironic because Ursula von der Leyen, sort of the speaker for the European Commission, has been really complaining about that. But the European Commission was also the one that said by 2035, no more new fossil fuel cars, which created a huge demand for electric vehicles, which then China stepped in by government subsidies and making electric vehicles 20% cheaper than European models. And so that's why Chinese EVs are flooding Europe.
Yeah, and I've actually, there's a lot of internal domestic boosting of China's car manufacturing in general. They're essentially, they want to be the next Japan. Mm-hmm. They want to be.
Well, they wouldn't say that.
No, probably not, given the that video
hatred
that you posted on your Instagram page about all the Chinese kids being asked to essentially each stand up and criticize Japan.
Mm-hmm. Check out the Instagram page. It's full of things.
That was, was that recent or was it just
I don't know. I mean, it was talking a lot about the Fukushima releasing
water,
so that could be
that happened
a couple months ago, year ago.
Maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
That they were releasing water from the power plant. So there was a lot of stuff in Chinese social media and the media also at the time about how dangerous it was that they were releasing this water.
Until it kind of came out that what China's doing is way worse than anything Japan is doing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are you talking about the floating nuclear power plants?
No, I'm talking about Chinese nuclear plants releasing nuclear wastewater into the ocean.
No. That's not a problem. It's only a problem
when Japan does it.
Japan does it, yes. Yes, this is true.
But yeah, I remember there being ads for people selling water filtration systems in China and stuff like that. Just anything to capitalize.
That will filter out nuclear radiation.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but it was just anything to capitalize on the Fukushima hate and anxiety at the time.
Good prep for Fallout universe.
I did start watching that TV show.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm only halfway through the first episode, so I don't know if I'm...
Well, I think based on how the internet goes, you can make wild claims.
Have you watched it?
I have not.
Well, then you should really be the one making the wild claim.
This is woke Hollywood garbage.
Is that what's happening?
Some people say it, some people don't. I mean, it's the internet. So Europe is definitely concerned about these Chinese EVs because essentially it already happened before with the European solar market.
Yes.
Where, they had a thriving solar panel industry. China came in, same thing, subsidized, slave labor, solar panels, completely demolished the European solar panel market.
Also the U.S.
And the U.S. too, yeah. But since we're talking about Europe.
Europe is a bit more protectionist when it comes to their industries. But
so that costs thousands of jobs. The car thing could cost millions of jobs because the European car market is huge. And if China is coming in, dumping all these EVs, doing the same thing where it's government subsidies and slave labor, also Chinese EVs have a habit of exploding. Maybe it's a way of sneaking in weapons. Just blow up Europe with EVs.
Right. Well, there's the other issue, which is there was recently this big issue where China was concerned about Tesla being in China because Tesla vehicles have all these cameras, right? So they can spy theoretically. The CCP was afraid that Tesla cameras could be storing this video data and using that to spy on China. And so they came up with this agreement that all the data would be stored in Shanghai for Teslas in China. So it's storing at a Chinese data center. And it kind of then they approved Tesla for that. But I don't know if that's what's happening in Europe. And even if the Chinese companies say, we promise we're only going to keep the data for the cameras on these EVs in a European data center, it could be, and this might shock you, it could be a lie.
Are these EVs made by ByteDance? I mean, yeah, but we saw the same thing with TikTok and ByteDance being okay, well, we will definitely keep all American data in the U.S. And nobody from China will be able to access this data as they secretly access the data to spy on journalists who are reporting negatively on TikTok.
Yeah, there's
and
apparently
ByteDance.
some like God code or like super admin code
You mean they have a secret backdoor? Wow. Yes.
Yeah. So that is another big issue with these Chinese EVs. Like if China's concerned about Tesla's spying, that means they're probably spying with their EVs.
Right. I mean, it's not just EVs. It's just that new cars do tend to come with all these cameras because they have various degrees of self-driving or safety measures.
I mean, if we want to talk about the camera thing, I was in a Best Buy a few months ago and noticed that a lot of their security camera equipment is made by Chinese companies, like Anchor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yep.
Yeah, if only the U.S. would stop propping up China. But back to Europe and them propping up China. Well, the European Commission is they're in the middle of an investigation into Chinese EVs. The report should come out in November at the latest, and they're talking about potentially putting tariffs on Chinese EVs, which the U.S. has already done, 27.5%, I believe, which is why there are no Chinese cars really in the U.S.
I mean, I do think that the problem that Europe is having is that they think they can maybe isolate this issue from like the other issues that come with the CCP. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, well, like the EV thing, we can protect Europe from the EVs if we put a tariff on them. But then look, let's still work with China on Russia and climate change, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, let's keep having these dialogues that we've had a million times and achieve nothing. But the other side of this is Germany. Germany is really standing in the way of any potential tariffs of the investigation. It's always nice to see the tension between France and Germany, even still in the EU. But yeah, there was some French official who was basically like, yeah, Germany is going to do everything they can to prevent this because 1 in 3 German cars are sold in China.
But like Germany was also one of the first countries to like go into China, right? And
Yeah,
in the
they've been there.
70s, like to the
they've got Volkswagen in Xinjiang, right?
Yeah, I mean, why would they do that? Why would they want a car like Volkswagen associated with authoritarian regimes that put ethnic minorities in concentration camps? That's a stain on the wonderful history of the Volkswagen.
I agree.
yeah. Moving on, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the stupidest thing about Germany, well, that's a whole other podcast.
A stupid thing about Germany.
Yeah, I'm not
is-
even going to go into 19th century German. Yeah, like experts, industry insiders are already saying like not just Germany's, but all foreign car manufacturers' days in China are numbered. Because what's happening is the same thing that always happened is they invite the foreign companies in, steal the intellectual property, create cheaper Chinese knockoffs, and drive the original companies out of business.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, how could you even not see this coming at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, German sales are already declining as like BYD and other Chinese car manufacturers are on the rise.
it may be too late already.
Yeah. And so what Germany is doing is they are selling out Europe for maybe a few more years of profit. And this is from the country that was desperately reliant on Russia for oil and natural gas, even after they invaded Crimea.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, in Germany's defense, there was no way for them to see what was coming in terms of a conflict with Russia.
Yeah.
There were no warning signs at all.
It's funny because you'd think they could read the writing on the wall when they had their own wall for so long with so much writing on it. Was that clever? I don't know.
I'm now kind of like wondering how many, how much of our audience knows about the Berlin Wall, because you have to be older than
Dirt.
I don't think
not
we're
older.
I don't think we're getting the TikTok generation watching us talk about musicals.
That's probably true. TikTok, the musical.
Yeah.
But anyway, Krista, to answer your question, I think it was clever for this point in the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Everything will be all right. Yes, everything will be fine.
I know that's from a musical. I just don't know which one.
It's Jesus Christ Superstar.
No, I just knew it from the look on Chris's face.
Oh
as
yeah,
you were saying
my
that.
smug satisfaction. Yeah. God, look at all of my trials and tribulations sinking in a gentle pool of wine. What's that in the bread? It's gone to my head.
Wow, you weren't kidding.
I am so merciful to you and everyone watching that I'm not actually now half an hour into reciting the entirety of Jesus Christ Superstar.
And I thought it was bad when my little sister was super into watching, Disney movies in the 90s, so I could like recite the first 20 minutes of Aladdin.
Buddha, was he where it's at? Is he where you are? Could Muhammad move a mountain, or was that just PR? Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So China, Europe. It's going to go badly for Europe. I think that's the conclusion of this.
I mean, they could turn it around maybe, but that would require a lot of political will, which...
Right.
Well, and there's also, when we had Teresa Fallon on, we kind of talked about this, that there are a lot of people in the European Commission, in the EU, that are still very much of this end of history mentality, where it's just, yeah, we all do trade, and there are no really authoritarian countries anymore. Like, we can all have different definitions of freedom. We just do trade. Doesn't matter. And really, that they should figure that out, that doesn't work.
Right. And like, so Europe, if you're watching this right now.
Love the baguettes, first of all. Great baguettes.
And schnitzel. But here's the thing. Stop doing business with China because you're going to enter a conflict with China in all likelihood. And the more you prop them up now, the better China will fare in that coming conflict. Does that make sense? Because you're propping up their economy right now.
Europe, leave a comment below. And be sure to hit that like and smash that subscribe button.
I mean, I think Europe probably feels like China's pretty far away, And maybe all they want is Taiwan.
There's probably a lot of people in the U.S. government who also are thinking that.
Yeah. Except the U.S. would more directly, because Europe
Taiwan
is also like
is a little closer to the U.S.
Yeah, and France does have not like islands in the Pacific, and but like it is true that generally you'd be like, okay, they're probably more worried about Russia than China, but still.
Yeah. I mean, for the U.S., I mean, I remember I forget who we were speaking to, but there was like a Chinese official who said, yeah, U.S., you just take Hawaii, what was it, like the Pacific
from
east,
like, east
and we'll
of
take
Hawaii.
Pacific West. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll take the other side west of Hawaii. Yeah.
And so then like the barrier between China and the U.S., instead of like at Taiwan, becomes Hawaii. Yeah. And that's a little different of a thing, isn't it?
But I can't imagine an authoritarian country ever attacking Hawaii. That would be crazy.
Another case of China just ripping off Japan.
Oh my god!
Have some new ideas, CCP. Seen much Chinese anime?
Why are they just
I've never
ripping
seen
off
a Chinese
Japan?
anime.
Yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah, what's one that you can think of?
I can't think. I just know vaguely that they're doing it. I think I've kind of purposely avoided Chinese anime, manhwa. That's their word for manga.
Yes, I know.
All right.
Isn't it? Okay. Anyway.
Isn't what?
Never mind.
Huh?
Chris, what's your favorite anime?
That's a tough one. Well, I'll recommend one that most people have never seen or heard of. Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, which translates as Goodbye, Teacher Despair.
Okay.
It's a little weird. I wouldn't recommend it as anyone's first anime. But it's basically, there's this Japanese professor, teacher, and his classroom is full of like all these students who sort of are archetypical representations of like quirks in Japanese society. So there's like one character who always apologizes for everything, who thinks everything's her fault. There's another girl who's like super upbeat and happy, and it's hiding like really dark, demented things. It's a funny show.
Yeah, that sounds hilarious.
And it references, a lot of other anime. It's beautiful music too. Beautiful animation. There's like a character who has like a split personality, who's like, a very like good subservient Japanese girl, but she also studied abroad, so she'll also sometimes transform into like this blonde, like really like overbearing, Americanized.
Interesting to see your culture from a different culture's angle. Yeah.
It's if you are an anime connoisseur, check out Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei.
And if you've actually watched this obscure anime, leave a comment below.
I remember when I made a reference to Macross once on China Uncensored.
Yes, there was
and
actually a lot of people did.
You are my people.
Well, I mean, I suppose we'll see how many Jesus Christ Superstar fans there are in the.
If there's like a bunch of Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei and Jesus Christ Superstar people commenting.
How big do you think the intersection of that Venn diagram is?
It could be
just one person, which is you.
No, me and my other friend.
And then like another really enthusiastic guy in Tokyo.
Maybe, no.
Yeah.
But my old high school friend, you know him, you've met him. He's in that Venn diagram as well.
Okay.
So it's at least two.
This really explains a lot.
What does it explain, Shelley?
Nothing.
Paranoia Agent is also a really fun one. That it's only like 10 episodes. I don't think a lot of people have seen it.
I've never heard of Paranoia Agent.
Yeah, it's very kind of like psychologically disturbing in a weird way, but it's very interesting. Very good.
Yeah, I've learned to take your media recommendations with like a giant grain of salt.
What was that
Happiness
movie?
of the Categories is fun, especially as like the one like happy sing-song musical. I mean, come on, have some songs and dances.
You showed us Happiness of the Categories, and Shelley and I were both so displeased with that film.
Did we even finish it?
No, we only watched like 25 minutes of it, and then we're like, enough, seriously.
Well,
and let me, just for clarity, when you showed us The Room, that was great. We watched the whole thing. To say The Room is the worst movie, it is not.
I definitely was kind of colored by the fact that you had already showed us The Room. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I'm not sitting all the way through Happiness of the Categories. However, we did both enjoy that movie about the Japanese guy who travels back to ancient Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like helps them invent like bathhouses.
Yeah, like this Japanese guy is playing an ancient Roman bathhouse creator.
Yes.
And that's I love that. You have Japanese people playing ancient Romans. And he's like a frustrated artist of a bathhouse designer, and he's like he can't come up with ideas, and he gets somehow transported to modern day Japan and see their spas, and brings the ideas back to ancient Rome.
I think he gets transported by a toilet.
No, it's like
it's in the bathtub, right?
It can happen in multiple places.
Yes.
It's not
Didn't
necessarily
he get flushed once though?
He did get flushed one time.
That's not the point. The point is...
Well, the point is what's really funny is like he sees the technology of like modern day Japan and tries to recreate it in the past. So he goes into like a jacuzzi and like, oh, there's the bubbles and it's great. So he creates that in ancient Rome. But how do you do that in ancient Rome? You have a bunch of slaves blowing frantically into tubes.
Yep.
It was really funny. Little woo.
Yeah.
And that's another case of like, this is Japan making a commentary about slavery is a little different than like, Americans.
Yeah, well.
It's a fun movie. They made a sequel. It's basically more of the same. But we should watch it. It's perfectly fine.
It's like, why change anything? People
Is it a different like plot, or is it basically also about bathhouses?
It's basically the same. Which is just more of the same fun, which is great. I think they end up saving the Roman Empire.
Through bathhouses. But didn't they do that in the first one?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because Emperor Hardin was like his troops were losing some important battle and they were getting demoralized. But the solution is a bathhouse to make the soldiers feel great.
Yes, there we go. That was it.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people were in a Roman centurion?
100?
About like 80.
It was not 100.
It was not 100. Like the ancient world was treated numbers very differently than we do in modern days.
Well, the Romans didn't even have a concept for zero, which is like the core of modern mathematics.
Yeah, and yet they could build aqueducts at such a grade that you can't even detect it without modern day digital tools, and they did it. And we're able to transport water hundreds of miles. It's amazing.
Do you think about Rome every day?
I do. Unfortunately, Rome was the great beast that came out from the sea, ridden by the harlot in the name of Babylon. That wasn't his song in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Okay.
That's Book of Revelations.
Okay. Never read that one.
I like aqueducts.
Cool.
I like Rome. They were also kind of horrible.
You know, you have aqueducts and you have slavery. You have your pros and your cons.
Yeah, yeah.
What were we talking about before this?
Oh, God, wow. Where are we?
He's Europe. It was Europe.
It was Europe? Again, I apologize. We had a guest. We had everything planned out.
Yes, we were going to be talking about the South China Sea and the Philippines.
Yeah,
We really were.
yeah. So, thank you.
And now I'm just thinking about after we came back from the South China Sea, watching One Punch Man.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. That's probably one of my favorite animes.
It's the only one I've watched, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And only one episode of it.
Did we never watch Sailor
Yeah,
Moon
it was
together?
just the one punch. That's all I needed.
I mean, that's basically the idea.
I never watched Sailor Moon, but I remember that both of you know the lyrics to the opening song, and we're singing it that time we were in Taiwan.
That's right. We truly
It was
were
jet
fighting
lag.
evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight, never running from a real fight. Is there a China team anywhere like us? No.
No, I don't think so.
If you're still watching, leave a comment about your favorite sailor in Sailor Moon.
Oh,
What's your favorite? They're all like 14. I feel like I can no longer discuss Sailor Moon.
I think I like Sailor Mars. Was she the one with the really bad temper?
Yeah, and like she was also like a Shinto priestess
Yes.
or something.
Yeah, she like worked at the temple.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
And she had the other cat. Yes.
No. It was Venus who had the other cat.
Venus had the other cat?
Yeah. Oh, my God. I'm so ashamed.
Yeah, well, it's been a while.
I could be reciting Jesus Christ Superstar, but now.
Sorry, we got you off topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exposing the episode
I
where I
suppose I
correct
was-
Shelley on Sailor Moon.
I suppose I was probably most like Sailor Mercury, though.
Oh,
like
yeah.
like the studious bookish one. I hated Serena.
Yeah, me too.
She was so annoying. She would just not stop whining about everything.
Yeah. And then in the American translations, there was, what was it? The Sailor Saturn and Uranus. Basically the ones who were like obviously like in the original like lovers. Mm-hmm. But in the American, they were cousins.
Yeah. They also...
Wait, hold on. I haven't watched this, so I don't know, but to
they didn't
me
make
that
it
seems
that
weird.
far. No, they didn't make it that far in like the anime, like that was translated to be a cartoon for.
Probably it gets to be like more and more problematic.
Yeah,
as it
like
goes
I
on.
think like that was in the manga, but was not in the anime. Like
Yeah, they do some
Yeah.
ham-fisted editing of like.
there was definitely some of the evil guys were like. I think it was like two men who were in love with each other, who were like some of the baddies, and they voice dubbed one of them as a woman,
Oh.
so that there wouldn't be any, homosexuality in what they remarketed as a kids cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, I had a crush on Tuxedo Mask.
Ooh, that was a big reveal.
Yeah, but there weren't a lot of Asian men on television at the time.
Can you tell that they're Asian? Like they just I mean, especially with those giant eyes.
How about that hunk from Thermi Romi?
I mean, I didn't watch Thermi Romi when I was.
Your premise is wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, he was Roman, Matt. Clearly.
And not on TV. Hey, we do have a lot we could talk about the Solomon Islands.
Oh, that's
as that
true.
is something we care about just as much as anime.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Somewhere Cleo is just so disappointed in us.
So,
So, background primer, bring you all back into the conversation. Thank God we can make clips out of this so people have no idea what just came before this. Obviously, Solomon Islands has been something we are very passionate about because it's a major place in the Pacific Island nations, which has very important national strategic considerations for the United States because these are the islands that Japan took over in World War II and was able to project power out to the Pacific.
I mean, there was a huge battle.
That's where the theater was.
Well, specifically Guadalcanal is in the
on the
Solomon
Solomon Islands, yeah. And so the CCP has been buying influence there. And I think this is a very good lesson because it's a case where most of the people in the Solomon Islands were not fans of the Chinese Communist Party. They saw that what they were doing was taking out resources from the Solomon Islands, not giving the locals anything. But the CCP just bought off enough well-placed politicians that they could do whatever they want.
including the prime minister at the time,
Manaseh Sogavari.
who this was the big thing, right? He switched recognition for the Solomon Islands used to recognize Taiwan, and now they recognize the PRC, China.
That's right.
So like that's the big thing that started this whole cozying up to the CCP, bringing in Huawei, cell towers, like the whole thing.
And one of the biggest opponents of that was Daniel Sudani from Malaita province. That's the biggest province in Solomon Islands. He stood up, and there was so much pressure on him. Like he got sick, and they wouldn't let him like leave to get medical treatment until like Taiwan. Oh yeah, he wanted to keep relations with Taiwan, so he had to like go to Taiwan to get like life-saving medical treatment. He got kicked out through like this weird, sketchy.
There was a vote of no confidence, but it failed the first two times, and then like I don't know if they CCP bribed enough people or whatever that mechanism was, but they finally got that enough votes to vote him out. But it wasn't like the people voted him out; it was like the legislature.
The provincial legislature, yeah.
So, and then we were able to get him to the U.S. We had a fundraiser on China Uncensored where so many people gave, and we were able to fund him coming to Washington, D.C. to speak with U.S. politicians. And that raised his profile enough so that when he went back to the Solomon Islands, he didn't disappear because there was like articles in state-run media basically accusing him of like treason.
Yeah, so he testified in front of Congress when he was here. And then recently there were elections in the Solomons, and he won his seat back in Malaita. But
not as premier.
But just as like a provincial MP. But he was in the running for... So the way it works, from what I gather, is... So everybody gets elected to like their MP positions, and then within that later, then people get elected to be like the premier or the prime, or nationally the prime minister. Like essentially, like all the parties get their seats, and then they like start like negotiating with each other to try to get a majority so they can have their person be the prime minister. So the good news is that Sogavari had to withdraw from like being prime minister again.
But he is still, what's his position now?
Well, so what happened was then, because maybe partially because he withdrew, his party still got enough support from other parties so that they had the majority instead of the opposition. So they were able to put this other guy, Manele or something like that, in as the prime minister. But Manele was in Sogavari's cabinet. Like he had another government minister position. So he was also like in the same, pro-CCP thing. Yeah. So there's another pro-CCP prime minister, not Sogavari, but this new guy. And then Sogavari is now a finance minister. Mm-hmm. So
things have changed, but it's kind of like how back in the 2000s, Putin had to step down because he'd maxed out his presidential terms, and then Medvedev was president of Russia, but everybody knew that it was
prime
Putin.
Minister, and
and then so
then they switched again.
They did switch, yeah.
But this is kind of the situation in the Solomons. Is like the people voted a certain way, but then like the negotiations and like dealing after
the whole parliamentary system,
afterwards, like the CCP can still have enough sway to influence enough
people.
Relic
of the old dead world of Europe.
The parliamentary system.
Yep. Things need to be like the U.S., where everything is settled with monster truck rallies.
Yes.
I have actually been to Monster Jam. Anyway.
You guys are learning so much about us today.
Yes.
This is what happens when we our plans change.
So we don't have a prepared. We were unscripted.
We really
are unscripted. But anyway, so back to the Solomon Islands. In Malaita province, where Soidani was the premier, he was running to be the premier again. Like again in this, like everybody's gotten their seats, and now they're kind of like figuring out which party has enough support. But then he withdrew from his running from the premiership because he said his family was being threatened.
And he is all about family.
And so it was just like, you see how nasty it can still get. So like the Solomons is in this weird situation where it's kind of like half taken over by the CCP, but there's still enough of like a democratic...
There's resistance.
Like there's enough of a democratic structure there, like that the CCP hasn't been able to like completely take over the government. So people can still vote. Like they voted Soidani back in, and they voted the guy who replaced him as premier. Like the guy who replaced him as premier in Malaita lost his seat.
Yeah.
So that was obviously like the people saying they didn't want what this replacement guy was doing, which was immediately like trying to bring Huawei in and trying to bring the CCP investment in that like Soidani had tried to block. So you can see that like there's a certain amount of resistance still. Like some of the democratic mechanisms are still working. But then when it gets to that government level where the CCP can do what they always do, like influence, bribe, do things like that, then they still have that pretty strong hold.
Right. And it's easier for the CCP to do all this stuff when nobody's looking, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we keep talking about the Solomon Islands, because people need to be looking at what's happening, because that in and of itself is going to slow down the CCP's efforts and their ability to actually completely take over that government.
Yeah, and it's like that's not just happening in the Solomon Islands, right? It's just easier to see in a certain sense because it's a smaller country with a smaller government, and
Right.
but some things are more.
It happens very quick.
Right.
Yeah.
And the CCP is trying to do that in a bunch of other Pacific Island nations as well.
Yes, but not just Pacific Island nations. We ran a story recently about what they're doing in Antigua, in the Caribbean, right? And not just in Antigua, like they're also super involved in, like there's a lot of infrastructure projects going on in Jamaica. There's the Bahamas. There's a lot of other countries in the Caribbean where China is trying to influence. And it's also not just small countries that might be more dependent on like a country like China for investment or loans and things like that. Like, I mean, the CCP is doing this in Canada. They're doing this in Australia.
Oh, they're doing it in the U.S.
They're doing it in the U.S. too. It's just the U.S. system makes it slightly harder in some ways.
Yeah, because I mean, the victor of a monster truck rally is a meritocratic system.
Yes, there we go. When I did watch Monster Jam, the guy who won his truck did like catch on fire.
God, I love this country.
Yes.
My favorite musical is Monster Jam.
Okay.
Jam.
That is a very specific. It's the Monster
If you
Jam.
ever watched Monster Jam, they have that song that they play.
It is
One
like,
song does not make a musical, Matt.
it does seem
A
like
theme song does not make a musical.
you know all
Chip
these.
and Dale's Rescue Rangers has one of the best theme songs. It was not a musical.
That was a very good theme song.
These two gumshoes are picking up the slack. They don't. Oh shoot!
I don't know the whole thing. I could only join in on Chip and Dale's. Anyway,
Which is the same song as the MacGyver theme song.
it is.
Oh my Chip and Dale.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Oh yeah.
Ah.
What? Now MacGyver. Now that's a good show.
Chip and Dale's was a good show.
I used
They were
to
equally
watch
good because the theme
MacGyver.
song was the same.
The shows I used to watch with my parents: Wheel of Fortune,
Okay.
MacGyver,
Nice.
and they for some reason loved the Lawrence Welk show. Did you ever see this on PBS? It was
I
like
didn't really watch it, but I am aware.
you know what
of
I'm
it. Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about, like this like this like guy who was like a band leader, and like, he makes programming for like essentially people who were very old in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And my parents loved it.
Maybe it's like a touch of Americana in a way.
I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of music in there. It was like mostly
I mean, you
singing
need
and
some
stuff.
songs and dances. Come on, it's a show. It's entertainment.
Yes, there were a lot of musical
Rick Chrome
numbers.
was always like that, wasn't he? Like remember Rich?
Yeah.
You know what show I want to watch? I've never watched. It's Twin Peaks. I feel like that's something I
I
definitely
do
should
feel
watch.
like Twin Peaks seems like it would be right up your alley.
The problem is,
Do you like David Lynch movies?
like, yes and no. Like, I watched Eraserhead, and that was like the only movie I had to turn off midway through.
Isn't the problem that you just don't have enough time to watch everything you want to watch?
That is actually true. I don't have time to watch anything except for maybe the occasional Minecraft YouTuber. B00. I know you're watching. Watch me, B00. 100, please. I want to be your friend.
Now, if they made Minecraft the musical,
Oh gosh, somebody's gonna make that. There's money on the table.
There's
there.
a Minecraft show.
I mean, yeah, you could bring
on
your
Netflix.
kids to Minecraft
Yeah.
the musical.
Have you seen that?
What?
It's a Minecraft show on Netflix, but it's like interactive. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure type thing.
How do they do that on a TV show?
You use your remote control to select what you want the characters to do. There's like every so often there'll be a few different options.
We have that technology.
I think there.
What wonders?
I think there was some like rom-com or something that Netflix also produced that you could do the same thing. Like you could choose what you wanted the characters to do, and I feel like I feel like writing this must have been such like because then you have to like write like A and B plots for everything.
And
in
the
the
spider
brand.
webs
So
out.
But then you have to kind of only have a few.
Right.
Like, you're not going to
the mathematical truth is the more bifurcations you have, the more impossible it becomes, right? Because if you have 10 bifurcations where it splits, right? There's two options here, and each of those has two options in each of those. By the time you get to 10 iterations, you've now got more than 1,000 different endings or things that have to happen. And it's impossible to film all of them.
Well, if you look at like the structure of those choose your own adventure novels, like they have ways to bring the different branching
They kind of
practices
loop
together.
them back and loop them back, yeah. With just like a few lines of slightly different dialogue of you choose this one and they're like, I'd like to do this. But actually, it really makes more sense for me to do option B. And yeah.
I can't believe we have that technology.
But anyway, it was...
I'm Ozymandias, king of king. Look at my works and tremble.
despair.
Despair, thank you.
Well, I mean,
don't
I
know.
feel like that is possibly the most elevated reference we have made in this entire, like a Percy
Depends
Bysshe
on how you feel about Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei.
or Hamlet, the disco musical.
So if we're choosing our own adventure when it comes to China relations,
Okay, bring it back.
does it mean that no matter what we choose, we kind of end up at the same...
I mean, there's only
Terrible
two
result.
choices.
Each time there seems to be two choices, right? Like stand up to what the CCP is doing or ignore it and give in. And ultimately, there's only two endings, right? Which is the CCP, collapses upon itself or the CCP takes over the world, right? It can only be those two, and I don't see any other in-between options. There's no spectrum at all.
Okay.
So I know which adventure I would choose.
So a big reason the U.S. has lost ground in the Solomon Islands is, as you were mentioning, China's Belt and Road Initiative is a big thing. The U.S. closed its embassy there in, the 90s?
Yeah,
Yep.
we are not choosing the correct adventure.
You're not.
They did. You know where else the U.S. closed its embassy in the 90s? Antigua.
Oh, and now,
Where-
yeah.
I mean, it's just... this is why I can't really get on board with like the kind of a libertarian isolationist crowd is because like having no foreign policy is not a foreign policy choice.
Yeah.
Like you can't just pretend that if the U.S. were to like, fix our problems first, then like the rest of the world would be fine because
China would take over, and then China would take over the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, this is like this is what is happening in the world now.
And it's crazy because just like it doesn't require much money, considering the amount of money we sent to Ukraine. And I'll be controversial, Israel.
I mean, I don't even think it's as much money compared to What was there was like some kind of like study that came out saying that we would end up paying like $2.3 trillion or something for the Biden administration's student debt relief.
Yeah.
Like over time, it would eventually cost that much.
That's a sum so big, my mind does not want to understand it. To have an embassy in a country and to fund like infrastructure projects may end up costing millions of dollars. But even if it's like, a billion per country over the next decade for 100 countries.
It's not even that. It's like $1 million here and there to like make a hospital.
I mean,
Right.
you
It's like
probably
nothing.
could do it for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Like you,
Right, but
here's
my
100,000.
Here's my point. Like, say we've sent over $100 billion worth of support to Ukraine, right? $100 billion is $1 billion to 100 small countries, and they don't need $1 billion each. They just need a few million or tens of millions.
I mean,
a tiny fraction of it.
They don't even all necessarily need money.
No, but they things they need cost of money, like having an embassy and having, certain promises kept and, making sure that, the islands that are, within our purview are getting, like postal service and like some of these basic things.
Some Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So they can watch
that
a
are-
Minecraft Choose Your Own Adventure.
Exactly. And that Wi-Fi is not on a Huawei network. That's what's key.
Yes. Well, that is something. It is interesting because this is something that the U.S. and Japan and the Philippines has been talking about, giving the Philippines technology specifically for wireless communication. And there is talk of essentially creating a U.S.-led. I don't know if I want to say it's U.S.-led, but an alternative to China's Belt and Road. They're calling it the PGI Luzon corridor. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but yeah, it's basically an alternative to the Belt and Road in the Pacific, Southeast Asian countries. And so it's good to see like this is going on, like people are talking about it, and either this is a Biden administration thing.
Who are we talking about? Was it the guy from?
We're talking about the Middle East.
No. I was thinking about the guy we were talking to who was from Bougainville, the place that area that
Of Papua New Guinea that wants to be independent.
Yeah. I mean, as a private businessman, he was talking about how essentially there could be alternatives to the Belt and Road, and it doesn't necessarily need to be completely like government led.
Right.
Like if the opportunity is created for like businesses to like private businesses to go in and do some of these things like build hospitals or whatever.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos, I know you're watching. I want you to make more money. Do something like this.
No, he just wants to like send rockets into space.
He's got the biggest yacht in the world.
I didn't know that.
I just
Not
learned that.
surprised, but I did not know.
I don't think you're compensating for anything. You buy that yacht. I want you to make more money. Alternative to Belt and Road. Bill Gates, I know you're watching too. What I said to Bezos. Also, what do you think about Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei? I know you watch. I know you're a weeb.
I suppose if any billionaire would be an anime fan, it
Bill
would probably
Gates.
be Bill Gates.
I mean, anime is just it's everywhere now.
It's
After
so
Dragon
broad.
Ball Z, come on. Over 9,000.
I have never watched Dragon Ball Z.
Want me to recite the entirety of Dragon Ball Z? Kakarot!
Have you watched Dragon Ball Z?
No, and in fact, for a long time I thought it was pronounced Dragon Balls.
Like a really extreme with the Z.
Dragon Balls.
Okay.
Nice. That was my first anime. Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, my parents were a little bit more restrictive about what I watched.
Because you were a psychopath.
They wanted me to not become that. So I could only watch PBS growing up because they didn't have commercials. That was actually my mother's main issue. She didn't want me watching commercials and to grow up and be materialistic.
Oh, that failed. You and all of your suits and pants. I
And
wear
pants.
pants every day.
I suppose so. I am indeed wearing pants.
Matthew
Unlike you.
Didn't you tell me you watch The Simpsons every day?
In high school, I did.
I was banned from watching The Simpsons too by my parents for a little bit.
The main show I remember there was as a kid I could only watch PBS, and then later that opened up a bit. But luckily after my parents divorced, my dad didn't have any restrictions on what I could watch, so that it was easier to watch basically whatever. And now my mind is poisoned.
My mind is poisoned now. At last, all too well. I changed it up a bit there. Nazareth, your famous son, should have stayed a great unknown like his father carving wood. He'd have made good. Tables, chairs, and oaken's chest would have suited Jesus best. He'd have caused nobody harm, no one alarm.
I will laugh.
Listen, Jesus, do you care for your race? Don't you see we must keep in our place? We are occupied. Have you forgotten how put down we are? I'm frightened by the crowds. We are getting much too loud.
Hey, Matt's just like, what's going on?
This is the first song in the thing.
I feel like I will laugh if we get a copyright strike for this podcast because you sang too much of Jesus Christ Superstar.
And hit all the notes.
Yes, there we go. It's enough for the Google algorithm to be like, wait a minute.
It's fair use. Jesus didn't want intellectual property. Are my elbows worn out? It's like shiny. Do I need a new suit? God.
And possibly some pants too.
You tyrant. Rex.
This has been going on long enough, right?
This podcast, I feel like we started off the rails, and there were a few attempts to get on the rails, but we never really were able to stay on the rails.
How are you going to make clips out of this?
I have no idea.
What do you think about this? I mean, what do you think about this? Really?
Would you watch this podcast again?
Are you still watching?
If you were at this point.
Anyone?
We should have made this a choose your own adventure podcast, and then we could have given people A or B choices.
Well, if you look into the latest research into quantum physics, in many ways, there are branching multiverses. So
there is a multiverse in which our guest showed up.
Yes, there was a multiverse where it was just us, but we were on the rails.
Mm-hmm. There was a multiverse in which you did spend the entire podcast reciting all of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Another one where I recited all of Dragon Ball Z. Mm-hmm. Man, Boo Saga. That would have been painful.
So I guess the real question is, which of those adventures would you choose?
Thank you for watching. If anyone is, I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley John.
And I'm Matt Ganesta.
Sayonara, Zetsubo Sensei.